I would like to say welcome. So my name is Nick Pringer. Excited to have you on the webinar here today. Let's talk a little bit about who we are and why we're talking about this. So I am Nick, as I mentioned, founder and CEO of Pringer Solutions Group and AskGenius. I'm joined by a man much smarter than me who knows what he's talking about, Andrew Menke, who's coming to us from Minnesota. Menke, how are things in Minnesota today?
Things are good. It's pretty balmy this week. We're in the upper 30s, so looking forward to a little bit of sunshine.
Nice. Do you have snow on the ground still there?
Still a lot of snow. Yep. But yeah.
Spring has arrived.
It's good right now.
Once you hit those upper 30s, life's pretty good up there.
Yeah. Everything's a little brighter, so it's
good.
It's a wonderful thing.
Love it. And I'm coming from Omaha, Nebraska. And today we are going to talk about pledge cards and pledge card design. Some background on who we are and if you should listen to what we have to say on this and how we ended up, in this position. We actually work for a consulting firm called Pringer Solutions Group, and we run large fundraising appeals in a very specific niche, which is large Catholic dioceses. So across the country, there's 177 large Catholic dioceses. We're the firm, we work with between a third and half of them running their annual appeals. And by that, I mean anywhere from 2 or 3 million a year, all the way up to $25 million a year, sending out hundreds of thousands of letters in direct mail and email solicitations. So that's our life's work, actually, is running this fundraising program. We also offer a couple of niche services. We do outsourced database administration for folks who have Razor's Edge. We have some digital tools that people use as well. But our passion is fundraising and annual appeals specifically. And I will admit, and Andrew can attest, we are complete nerds. And in the course of our work, we are constantly looking for ways that we can improve what we're doing. We can use data, we can optimize, because with as many clients as we have and as many pieces of mail that we are sending for those clients each year, a tiny little improvement in any area makes a really, really big difference, right? $1 million difference for ministries and great nonprofits out there that need that funding. So that's who we are. Pringer Solutions Group, we run annual appeals for large organizations. I'm going to walk through some of the things that we've learned in a bunch of different areas, and then I'm going to get to the meat of the matter today, which is talking about pledge card design. So first, we have looked, as I shared, we're huge data nerds. We have focused on every area of fundraising that we can to try and optimize it as much as we can. Here are some of the things that we've already learned, just kind of covering as a background. We've learned a ton about fundraising letters and solicitation letters. I'll share just one slide about what we learned. It's possible we might actually do some webinars on each of these little topics individually. But just so you know, the short lightning round version of what we learned, your fundraising letters should be heartfelt. They should be informal. Yes, you should have those indented paragraphs. You should have words that are underlined, some that are bold. Your font size should be a lot bigger than you want it. So size 13 or 14. Times New Roman. You do not want to use Arial or Calibri or anything that doesn't have a serif. And it should be long. So this is the first hot take of the day. Long letters outperform short letters every day of the week. And we have tested this through the roof. And it's just the case. A long, heartfelt letter that's personal, that's somewhat informal, where the font size is big enough for your average donor who's 68 years old to read, will always outperform a shorter letter. And you should always have a PS at the end, because that's, for most people, the way they enter a letter, right? We get a letter, we look to see if our name's correct. We then look at that Johnson box, which is that area up there in the upper right. And then we go down to the PS, and then we kind of work backwards in and we skim it down. So we spend a ton of time. It's possible we might even do a webinar entirely on letters, but that's what we've learned. And that's a good reason for me to pause and say, if you have questions, so if you have questions even right now about why should I write a longer letter, how long should it be, hit that Q&A button on your screen. That will put the question into our queue, and then Andrew and I can answer them when we get to the tail end here. Okay, so one of the first things we did as a consulting firm, we tackled letters, we ran a bunch of tests. That's everything we know about letters. Donor segments. Here are the donor segments that we use with all of our clients. So when we send out a fundraising appeal, this is 2022. You cannot send out a dear friend letter anymore. So not just personalizing your fundraising letter, but personalizing the content of that letter to your donor segments. You need to have a letter version for first-time donors, one for major donors. Donors who are just below each giving tier is a really critical segment. So maybe somebody gave $400 last year and you have a giving circle at $500. You need to invite them up to that giving tier. Milestone donors. So on this example, even on your screen, you'll notice at the top, it's got that huge little award badge thing that says, thank you, for 10 years of donations. That's really critical. It's a way to show donors, we see you, we know who you are, we recognize you, we're keeping track and we're honoring you for all of the good work that you've done. In-person donors last year, this is a big one in our industry with Catholic dioceses, where we have a lot of folks. The appeals that we run are hugely direct mail driven, but that's largely to renew and recapture donors. The way that new donors come in the door is through in-pew appeals, when people are actually sitting in church and they're asked to fill out a pledge card. That's a whole segment, because we need to transition them from that in-pew gift last year and bring them over into the direct mail crowd. So that's a segment that's really important. Campaign but not appeal donors, so a letter segment to people who didn't give to this specific appeal, but who gave to something else, maybe the special event or they attended a golf outing. And then finally, non-donors with high wealth rating scores. So those are, according to PSG and our years of experience doing this, that's where we're going to start. Any client we work with, those are the segments that we're looking at. Again, if you have questions, go ahead and hit that Q&A button and submit them, and we'll tackle them in sort of a rapid fire session at the end. We've optimized donation pages. Every client that we've run for at least the past 3 years, we are testing out different versions of a donation page. So we're hosting a donation page and we're trying to learn as much as we can. And we've learned a ton, right? We're probably 90% of the way there. So what you have on your screen is actually what we consider to be, both versions are what we consider to be the perfect donation page. Because we've tested it. We know that you should have a smiling photo of people on the donation page itself. We've tested the amount of copy, whether you should have any copy or get right to the donation form. This is how we design every donation page. But this year we wanted to tweak it a little bit and find out, we had this idea. We thought, and we were pretty sure it was going to work. And the idea was this. So if you see the difference between the left one and the right one, on the left, we put the giving societies. In this case, you can see at $25, you can join the Our Lady of Guadalupe Circle, and $50, $100, on and on. We thought, what if we put that description in the button itself? So when a donor goes to make that gift, they're not just choosing the amount, they see that they're joining a society. We know that everybody loves to join giving circles and clubs. So we tried it out, right? So the left version, we put giving tiers on the donation buttons. And in the right version, we did the standard treatment. So we're going to actually do our first poll. We'll make this interactive today, and I'm going to launch this. Which donation page do you think performed better? So take a moment, take a look. On the left, you've got the giving tiers in the button itself. And on the right, you have the standard treatment donation page. We'll give it about 5 more seconds here. This is fascinating to watch in real time. Okay, so we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. We'll share the results. So Andrew, is that showing up okay? Give me a nod if the results are showing up on the screen.
It's showing up.
Excellent. Yep. Okay, so the group thinks, so if we ask the crowd, the group thinks that 80% agreed with us that this is a good idea. Let's find out. Advance the slide here. On the left, we had a 30% conversion rate and the average donation of $357. On the right, we had 32% conversion and $367. So we are incorrect, and this is why we test things. And it was frustrating to me because I was so excited. I thought we really were onto something here. One of those, you wake up in the morning, you're like, this is a great idea. We're going to raise a lot more money. And in fact, it did not. So $10 might not seem like a big deal, but over time and with thousands of donors, it's a really big deal. So as soon as we got enough data to know that this was accurate, we actually shut it down. We put all the traffic back to the donation page on the right, and we'll live to fight another day. We'll come up with another idea. We'll test it. And as always, if you've been following PSG for a while, we always like to build in public. We'll share the results of everything we're doing to help everybody get a little bit better and smarter at this. Okay. So we've tackled donation pages. Again, not the topic of today. 2 more things I'll cover that we've tackled, and then we'll get into pledge cards. Donor funnels, right? So in the old days, if you were a nonprofit, you say, yes, of course we have online giving. And that means that you've got to button on your website somewhere where people can put in a credit card. That's not the way the world works anymore, right? That's it. The one size fits all approach doesn't cut it. The new way of doing things, because it works better, is what we call a donor funnel. And this graphic on your screen is big and messy and complex. I share it just as an illustration of how we think about donation pages at Premier Solutions Group for our clients. There's no one size fits all. So on the table on the left, those are all of the donors that we're about to mail to, sorted by ask amount. And then if you zoom in, you can see the donation page that we're inviting those groups to, right? So we're starting off with a monthly gift amount, and lower level donors are going to this page, medium donors here, high level donors here. And then we have a funnel where we can take them from a monthly gift. If they don't want to do that, we'll take them to a one-time gift, and then we can take them to a pledge. So donor funnel is something we know a whole lot about. We're very passionate about. Again, we'll probably do a webinar just on that topic before too long. And then finally, before we get to pledge cards, social media. We've spent a ton of time throwing everything at the wall with social media, and we've made a ton of mistakes, which means that we have a lot that we can share. We like to make mistakes. We like to fail fast and learn things, and then we kind of zero in on what works well. So we know the best way. Oops, sorry about that. The best way. I got to move things around on my screen. This is a short little video. This is what you should be doing, candidly, for your nonprofit. If you manage your expectations, people do not click on social media ads and donate. It just doesn't happen. But they will, if you run this as an ad targeting people who have given before, they will be more likely to give, right? So that's an ad we did an example for a client. We targeted on Facebook specifically to previous donors that we knew cared about this particular thing. And we ran it for about a month before we then did our fundraising effort. And what do you know? Participation goes through the roof. Okay, so that was a lightning round of everything that we've optimized. And now the topic that we're on today is talking about pledge cards. Okay, how do we optimize our pledge cards? It is something, everything that I've talked about so far, Andrew's like, whatever, that's kind of boring. This is his passion, right? So he lives, when he wakes up in the morning, all he wants to do is tweak pledge cards, optimize them, raise a little bit more money by making some design changes. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Of all the things that we've tested, this is the, I would say the most robust, right? We have spent 3 years working on this topic, and where we started was we did a huge research project. So we invited in our industry, again, we run fundraising appeals for giant Catholic dioceses. We invited all of them and we said, would you send us your pledge card and send us your ask strings, send us your formulas for how you set amounts, give us everything. And they did, because we have a history of doing the analysis and then sharing it for free with the world. We saw every kind of pledge card imaginable. And I've just thrown a couple of them on the screen there. And what we learned is this. There are essentially 2 kinds of pledge cards that nonprofits are using. Okay? There are So 2 kinds of pledge cards. There's an open-ended pledge card that looks a little bit like this. Yeah. When I say open-ended, I mean it has a blank where the donor is asked to fill in an amount. Yeah. So some of the folks on the call here today, this is what you're using. It's an open-ended card. It's just got a big blank there with the $sign. The donor writes in the amount of gift they want to make and they send it in. The second kind of card is a pledge card with ask amounts. And what I mean by ask amounts are these little guys here. This pledge card is a little bit more advanced, and we're going to talk about why it's designed the way it is. But essentially, you're putting ask amounts in front of a donor and asking them to just check a box. The idea is it makes it a little bit easier for donor to give. So what we learned from this research, there's 2 kinds of pledge cards. We wanted to know which card works better. You know, pretty common sense question here. What should we be using for our clients? What we learned is this open-ended card here works well with a very specific group of people. Major donors. If you are going to ask someone for, let's say, $10,000 or more, for some of our clients it might be $5,000 or more, but your major donors, you should send them an open-ended pledge card. And the reason is, if you send them ask amounts, it just gets weird, candidly. If I were giving you $5,000 and then you send me a pledge card with a box that says, would you like to give 5,000 or 6,000 or 7,000? It kind of cheapens the experience for me. Andrew, this is like that example of you're probably a lot like me. in that, we love mowing the lawn. Nothing we love more than coming home and mowing the lawn. So I will wake up in the morning and think, oh man, I really got to mow the lawn today. And I'll feel good about it though, because my wife will be happy. And then my wife texts me and says, hey, would you mow the lawn? It's getting really, really long. And that feeling is so different between when it's my idea and I get out there and I do it and I feel good, like I've done something good, versus when she asks me to do it, it feels a little bit different. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Happens all the time.
Yeah, it does. In the same, it happens with everything. I'll be like, oh man, I better take those Christmas lights down. And then my
Yeah.
wife will be like, she'll ask me like an hour before I'm about to go out there and surprise her.
No, it's my idea. Don't take that away from me, please.
Don't steal it from me. I was initiating this. That's what it feels like for major donors when you get a card with an ask string on it. So don't do that. Send your major donors, trust them that they will write in that amount, the 5,000, 10,000, 20, 30,000. I have seen horror stories. I mean, we have seen clients that will send somebody that gave $30,000 a pledge card with a checkbox that says 30,000 or 40,000. Don't do that. Okay. Your donor may be looking past it, but I guarantee you it's a different giving experience for them. Okay. And if you have questions on this, again, hit that Q&A button and we'll tackle them here at the end. Cards with ask amounts, these are best used for everyone else. Okay? If you're not a major donor, you should have ask amounts on the pledge card that you're sending to your donors. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about how you set those ask amounts in a minute. What else did we learn? From our research project and from running these large annual fundraising appeals year after year, how do we increase participation? So now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the design of the pledge card. There's a couple ways that we know to improve participation in an appeal. First way is this is going to be shocking, make your pledge card easy to use. Okay. And that means, number one, having these wayfinder kind of signpost things. Put numbers on it, guide them through the process. Number one, start here. Number two, go here. Design your card so that it's big enough that people can read, that you're only asking for what you need to ask for. And then the couple things that we've proven to increase participation. Start with an affirmation statement. Yeah, and you'll notice this. We have nonprofits of all sizes on the call here today. Larger nonprofits that kind of have a budget for research and development, they've seen this through their own data. So the larger and more sophisticated the nonprofit, the more you see their pledge cards start to align with what we're talking about. So start with that affirmation statement that says, yes, in this case, we want to support our priests and families and the poor in our diocese. That eases the donor into it. It just works. Another item that can increase participation, make your donation page easy to use, right? And big and large right there. Please support the diocese, go to support.dioceseofnashville.com. Because a lot of us, myself included, have horrible handwriting. We just don't, we never write anymore. So when I get a pledge card like this and I want to support it, statistics show that more than half of people would rather respond electronically to a direct mail appeal. So make it easy for them to do that. Okay, big, easy, bold donation pages. And I should point out on this card, the pink copy, that is not actually pink when it goes out. That's pink because it means it's variable data. So this is a screenshot of sort of an internal document that the printer's using. It's going to be in a different color ink when it goes out. But all of that pink stuff is variable data. Okay. Donor recognition badges. So in the previous example, when we talked about letters, there was that big badge at the top that said, hey, you've been giving for 10 years. This is an equivalent of that. On the pledge card, this would be for a 2020 appeal. It shows right there, this donor has given to the last 4 appeals. You should absolutely be putting this little graphic on that pledge card or in the letter itself somewhere as a design element that has checkbox next to the last 4 years, because the donor gets that, they are sure as heck not going to skip it. They're going to keep that streak alive. They feel recognized. They feel rewarded that you know who they are. Okay. So those are quick things, make it easy to read, put numbers on it and guide them through the process, have the affirmation statement at the start. Yes, we want to support this important cause. Easy use donation page and donor recognition badges. Okay. Menke, did I miss anything on that?
No, you didn't. I think we'll get more into it, but when you put the URL down in the pledge form, make sure that it's sending donors directly to your giving page. Don't create more work for them, sending them to your website, and then they have to find their way to it. Send them directly to the page where they can click on that ask amount and give their donation.
Yes. Perfect. That's exactly right. So we all have, sort of the appeal page or the donation page, which is general overview, and it's got videos and photos and everything else. That's not what this link should link to. Go directly to a donation page. And if you follow our advice earlier about donor funnels, it should be a custom page based on the donor. So if this is a low-level donor, the buttons that they should see are, $25 or $50 or $100 gifts. If this is a major donor, they shouldn't have any buttons on there at all. They should see copy talking about gifts of stock and IRA giving, and then an open-ended blank where they can make a donation if they want. Okay, so that's how we increase participation on pledge card design. But how do we promote recurring giving? The biggest trend of the last few years in the nonprofit space is the move from annual fund appeals into sustaining giving strategies, monthly givers, recurring givers, whatever you want to call it. Whether you're a hospital foundation, a college, a high school, a Catholic diocese, you are by now probably stripping down your development program and rebuilding it with the goal of getting as many sustaining recurring givers as possible for a whole bunch of reasons that you probably don't need me to spell out for you. How can you design the pledge card to make that happen? Here is what we've done. So again, back to this pledge card that we designed early on in the process. Here's what we did. That step one is we want to have the donor make that decision early on. So right away, they say, yes, I want to support this cause. And then they're given an option. Which one are you? Define yourself for us, right? Are you a monthly giver or are you a one-time giver? Just have them make that decision. And we specifically are not using terms like pledge here. We want them to decide. They will tell you, yeah, $25 a month or $100 right now. Force that decision early on because really good things are going to happen. So you do that on the front end. Invite them with two different ask strings. Here's a monthly ask string and here's a one-time gift ask string. And then when you get to the payment details part, you can default that to a recurring gift. So for the folks that said, hey, I'm going to give you $25 a month, in their head, they might have meant for 6 months or 12 months, and you can give them those options. But have the first checkbox say, you know what, just keep it going until I ask you to stop. Notice what we're not doing. We're not saying, would you like to sign up for a recurring gift or a sustaining gift? Because most people don't know what those things mean. Certainly, they don't know what sustaining giver means if they're a new donor, but they know what it means to give a gift monthly. And consumer behavior has shifted so much towards subscription services and recurring monthly. That's how we budget. So consumer behavior has moved there. Philanthropic behavior is following right along. People are used to that $20 a month to Netflix, the $100 for the HelloFresh, groceries or whatever it might be. So start by asking if they're a monthly giver and then default to until I ask you to stop. You can also, so underneath here in this example, we'd say only through December 20th. So whether they made that gift in January, then they had 12 payments. If they made the gift in June, then they had 6 payments. But that's the way that the donor's mind works. It's a very donor-centered approach that has worked really well. Okay. And then on the front, the best thing that you can do to promote recurring giving, going back to the front, is that URL. So remember we talked about donation funnels, where that donation URL should take them. If you've done your job and you've written a heartfelt letter and you've talked and invited people to make recurring gifts and monthly gifts, take them and start with a monthly recurring gift request. Okay, so on this page, I'll zoom in. It says, yes, I would like to set up a monthly donation to support this appeal. If they want to make a one-time gift, that's fine. Don't put it on the same donation form. Have this little button down here, give them a hyperlink that says, if you'd prefer to set up a one-time gift, you can click here. And donors will, right? So as long as you don't try and hide it, you never want to trick people into a certain kind of gift, but it's okay to prioritize monthly giving. So we invite them to make a monthly gift online. If they want to make a one-time gift, they click away. And then down below, of course, you have donation amounts, and you have multiple versions of this page depending on who the donor is that's going there. That is the best way we know through the pledge card design and the donation funnel to increase recurring gifts. In the examples that we shared, and these are about 2 years old, we just kind of started this optimization process. The Diocese of Nashville, 7% of their direct mail donors made a recurring gift with that pledge card, that exact pledge card I showed you. 31% of their online donors made a recurring gift. That has held, that's kind of the high water mark. So as we went along and we got a bigger sample size, and we did this for a whole bunch of our clients, we found that it's actually between about 22 and 25% of online donors, we can get them to make a recurring gift. So consider about 1 in 4, 1 in 5 donors, if we get them to go online, we can get them to make a recurring gift with that donor funnel strategy. Okay. Should we ask for credit card information on a pledge card? We've kicked this around a bunch. We've tested it. Here is our strong opinion. This is the hill that Andrew and I will die on. No, you should not ask for credit card information on a pledge card. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but we've always done it this way, right? And or you're saying, but what if people, they're used to writing it there, what if they don't go online? They will. Trust me, we have proven this out. We have taken clients with tens of thousands of donors who were writing in by credit card, and we've moved them into online giving. Replace that spot on your pledge card and put a big old URL link there where they can go to donate online by credit card. Here are the reasons why. Number one, PCI compliance. Data security is everything. Donors are getting more savvy. We're just not in a world anymore where it's a good idea for you as a nonprofit to have slips of paper with the donor's credit card number written on it. That's just not a good idea. It's not PCI compliant. You might outsource that to a lockbox. It's still honestly not a great idea, just from a data security standpoint, to have those things lingering around forever. But the truth is that's not even why. The reason why we want you to have people make their credit card gifts online is because they are so much more likely to make a recurring gift. Set aside the fact that gifts are larger. Always, anyone who donates online makes a larger gift than they do if they fill out a pledge card. So you want them to go online, but recurring gifts are everything. They're so much more likely to make a recurring gift online. We know that we can get 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 donors to make a recurring gift if they make their gift online. So we spend a lot of time getting them there. It's easier on your staff to process the gifts. You're guaranteed to get an email, which is critical, so that we can steward that donor on. We can communicate with them. We can tell them how much we appreciate them, and you can target social media ads with them if you have at them, if you have their email address. Finally, it allows you to control the whole experience better, right? So I know that's nerve-wracking. If you have questions, and I think a bunch of people do, that little icon started blinking a lot when I said don't put the credit card on your pledge card. So we can talk more about this if you want, but we feel strongly, get it off of there. Just put a URL. If people want to donate by credit card, they will head there to the website. They can donate from their phone. And when they do, it's even easier for them too. When I go to donate somewhere online, Google is smart and it fills in my credit card for me. It takes about 2 clicks to make that donation.
Yeah, and from a design aspect, it's going to save you so much more room, because you're always thinking about, how do I get all this information onto this pledge card? And that credit card spot takes up a ton of room. And then going back to easier to process the gifts, you're not trying to translate people's handwriting. It creates more work for you, more work for the donor. You have to call them, follow up, clarify what their credit card information is. So there's a lot of different reasons why it's better to just keep it off and then promote recurring giving.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Another test we ran, what size of pledge card works the best? So this is the client we did in Kansas City. Excuse me. This is what the pledge card looks like. We did a giant test. We're talking 30 or 40,000 direct mail pieces that went out the door. Half of the donors received a standard size card. So it's usually about 1/3 of a page, give or take, 3 or 4 inches tall. The other half received a full page donation form. And we did this because we're always doing research, not just doing it ourselves, but we're reading what other people do. And we'd read in an article somebody posted that full page cards outperformed the standard treatment. So here, actually, I think I have a poll for this. Let's find out. Andrew, the group did miserable on the last one. So this is the time for them to redeem themselves. Oh, no, sorry, that's not, I don't have a poll for this. I have a poll for the ascending versus descending. So I'll put you on the spot. What do you think? Andrew, what do you think? Which one performed better, full page or standard?
I mean, I would think it would be the standard, just because it's simpler and there's less there to fill out. But what's the consensus? What's the data show?
Here's what we know. The data shows the full pledge card, the average gift was $1,700 for this appeal. That was 20% higher than the standard card for major donors only. So this is interesting. This is why I love research so much. We learned something. We found the full page card works better for major donors, just like the open-ended pledge card works better for major donors. It had no difference whatsoever when you reach sort of the general donor population. Participation rate, again, for donors who are making major gifts, 20% higher participation rate. Excuse me, a 20% participation rate, which was 16% higher than the other card. So the takeaway on this is, yes, full-size cards are better if you're using it to major donors. If that's too much for you, you don't have, from a gift processing standpoint, you can't have different size pledge cards. I get it. Just go with the standard one. We found it doesn't make a huge difference for the majority of your donors, but for major donors it did, which I would only hypothesize might be it's easier to read. It lets you a little more room to breathe. Major donors are generally a little bit older, so maybe that's why. We don't know for sure. Okay, here's the one that everyone's waiting for. This is all great. So Nick, we talked about how to get recurring donors and how to get online donors and how to increase participation. We know all that stuff. How do we get people to donate more money through our pledge card design? Here's what we know. Let's talk about pledge cards with ask strings here. We know that ask strings, and by that they're also called, oh boy, they're called about 15 different things, right? So
ask strings, gift arrays, giving tables, gift ladders, bump table, all sorts of different things.
All of that, every one of those things and more we've heard, and which made it really hard for us to do the research because everybody uses different terms. We're going to call them ask strings or ask amounts. That is the way that you get people to donate more money. We've tested this rigorously, and where we'll start is this. I do have a poll for. On the screen, those ask amounts are from low to high, right? 50, 100, once from as you go left to right. The question for the group, we'll see. We're going to see if we can redeem ourselves here. Should we present those ask strings low to high, or should we present them high to low? Okay, so let me know. Fill out the survey here. We'll find out. Maybe if you were really confident in the last one, go against your judgment here and guess the opposite. What do you think performs better? Low to high or high to low? We'll give about another 5 seconds here. Okay, so we'll go 3, 2, 1. Share the results. The wisdom of the group, not quite as confident this time. High to low has about 60%, and low to high has about 40%. And we are at least consistent in that none of us know what we're doing, because the majority is wrong. You want those ask strings to go low to high. The average gift is 17% higher in our experience when we've tested this out in big double blind tests. 17% higher average gift. Okay, so we have some ideas on why, and there's other researchers who've done work on this as well. The idea behind it, which we've proven out, is that we read left to right. If you have a donor that made a gift before, maybe they gave $100. If you go high to low, so that donor who gave $100 last time, the first thing they might see could be a $1,000 gift or a $500 gift. And the donor is going to recoil and say, that's not me. Like that's too much. And then they move to the right and, maybe went from 1,000 to 500. They're like, oh gosh, it's still not me. And it's like these little microaggressions where they feel worse and worse and worse as they go. And that's not a good donor experience, right? Contrast that with a donor who gave $100 last time, and maybe the first amount they see is 100 or maybe $120 or something, and think, yeah, okay. But then they always peak a little bit to the right, and they, yeah, you know what, I could bump it up a little bit. It's just human nature. We move left to right. I can't tell you for sure because I haven't interviewed every single donor until I don't even know if they'd be able to tell you, consciously why they're making that decision. But we can tell you it works. So that's concrete. Take it to the bank. Redesign your pledge cards, put those ask strings low to high as it goes left to right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, we had that fundraise up. We did a webinar with them, the donation page people, and they said they had found on a website, I think they found in a desktop version, high to low, and on a mobile donation page, it was low to high in terms of up and down. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think it was high to low and then also vertically stacked. Is that correct?
That's what I'm saying. Yep, vertically stacked. So I want to make sure I'm clear on what we've tested. We did not test vertical stacks. We tested left to right horizontal stacks. Okay. So ascending. So we are officially 0 for 2 on the wisdom of the crowd here today, which makes this the best webinar ever because you're learning actionable things that you can take back to raise more money. Okay. So those ask amounts, we know that they're critical to raising more money. We dove deep. We went deep into the black hole to find out how are nonprofits setting those ask amounts. So we know from all the pledge cards we received that everybody has ask amounts on there, but how are they setting them? How do they decide who gets what ask amount? It turns out there's 3 ways that nonprofits are determining those ask amounts. Method 1 is they're not, right? They're just sending the same pledge card to everybody. One size fits all. They have a standard ask string that maybe, 25 bucks, 50, 100, 200, and everybody gets it. I can tell you, you are leaving a ton of money on the table if you're doing that. Second method is a little bit better, where they create like a high, medium, and a low categories, and then they segment out that way. So these people are going to get the low card, these people are going to get the medium, these people are going to get the high. And then a little bit less than a third of the nonprofits that we surveyed, they have a formula. They have some sort of an algorithm. And almost every single one of those formulas was just see what they gave last year, ask for 10% more, maybe round it so it looks a little bit smoother. That was unsatisfying to us, being the biggest nerds that you've ever met before, because we spend a lot of time in gift processing and data entry, and we know how much gold is in there, right? All of that data that your data team, your donor services team is putting in there, that's sitting inside of Razor's Edge or Salsa or Bloomerang or Salesforce for nonprofits, whatever it might be, it's sitting inside there. And when you look at these strategies, you're not using any of that data at all. If you're sending everybody the same pledge card, all of the hard work you've done to learn about your donors, you're not using any of it. You're firing just a shotgun blast approach. You are leaving so much money on the table. Even if you're segmenting your pledge cards, at most you're using 2 data points, what they give last year and then maybe what their largest gift is. Everything else you're not using, it's not informing your approach. The third method of asking people, for a little bit more than what they gave last year, you're still just using 1 data point. You're ignoring people and what they gave 2 years ago and 3 years ago. You're ignoring that wealth research that you paid so much money for, and it was maddening to us. It was maddening because we know how much you pay for your donor management systems. Most of you use Razor's Edge, and all of that data that you work so hard to gather is just sitting inside that system, and it's not being used to raise more money. We thought, what if there's a better way to do that, right? So the topic we're on here is how do we set those ask amounts? So we got a little ambitious and we kind of overcommitted, but we said, what if we set a custom amount for every household? So we, as a Pringer Solutions Group, the consulting firm, we told our clients, we started with 2, Diocese of Phoenix, Diocese of Dallas. We said, we're going to set ask amounts based on everything we know about the donor. The way we did that was incredibly painful. We went in the Razor's Edge and we hit the export button of all of the results we got were astounding. The Diocese of Phoenix, where we did this, they had their most successful appeal in 15 years. Average gift went up 20%. Recurring gifts went up 300%. In the Diocese of Dallas, even better. It was the most successful appeal that they've ever had by a wide margin. Their direct mail raised an additional $1 million just by changing the way that we set these ask amounts. And the average gift went up 16%. Actually talked to Kelly over the weekend. It's actually higher. It's up in the upper 20s now. So we knew that it worked. We know that we're onto something, that ask strings have a tool that we built for ourselves. And then we ended up kind of using it for some of our clients called AskGenius that does all this for you. So we decided not to do it in Excel anymore. We built this tool so that it can take all of your data, suck it up, comb through everything, and then set the perfect ask string for you. We're not going to go into a ton of detail on it. If you are on Razor's Edge, you can find it in the Blackbaud Marketplace. If you're not on Razor's Edge, you can go to askgenius.com and check it out. I'll put up a short poll. If you do want to learn more, here you go. This is your chance to say, yeah, tell me more about that before we move on. So I'll put that out there. So it's a tool that we built just candidly, I built so that all my staff wouldn't quit. We knew that it worked, but we'd overpromised and it worked really well for our clients. We couldn't stop doing it, but we just needed a better way to do it. So that's what we built. I'll give this another couple seconds here for people to reply. If you do want to learn more, let me know. Andrew and I can reach out to you and show you how it works. Thank you for that. Okay, so now back to the pledge card topics. We've talked about how to increase participation. We've talked about how to promote recurring giving. We've talked about how to increase gifts, which is the most important part. And we talked a ton about ask strings and how those increase gifts. Here is what we use. We talked about the world's greatest pledge card. This is the template that we use internally. So every client we work with, we start with this. And it is designed in Microsoft Word, right? So if you wonder why is it black and white, why is it simple as it is, because these are the building blocks we use, and then we of course work and customize it to make it fit the client. This is, if I'm joining this webinar looking for the world's perfect pledge card, this is where it starts. You've got your affirmation statement at the front. The number one thing you're asking them to do is decide between a monthly or a one-time gift, which is going to drive up the number of recurring gifts by a lot. You'll notice the difference between this and some of the pledge cards I showed earlier. We put that little "until I choose to stop" right in the same spot. So that's something we learned in the 3 years we've been working on this. We don't even want donors to have to flip to the back to say they want to keep going. We want to do it right there. Yes, I'm a $10 a month and until I say to stop, or maybe for 10 months or 6 months or whatever it might be. Okay, we've got our donor badges over here. We've got tons of room for scan lines. If there's any printers and lockbox providers on the line, they're very passionate about making sure you have a lot of white space around that scan line, which is important. On the back, we do not ask for credit cards. We ask for donor information, primarily email. Give us your email, give us your spouse email, and a cell phone. Okay, this is the simplest, most effective pledge card that we can design. Again, you're going to want to customize it to you, but that's what we do. And Andrew, we can send this out to folks too, right?
Yeah, yep, we'll send this out so you have the sample. The key word in this is simple. So it's the simpler it is, the better. You think of people's attention spans over the last 10 years, it's gone away. It's much shorter than it used to be. You think of your own experience when you open up mailings, you receive a pledge form and it has a bunch of different boxes and different things that you need to fill in. You think, I don't have time for this, I'm going to save it for later. And then you forget about it and it goes under your stack of mail. So the simpler, the better, the easier it is to fill it out right there. And then when they read your appeal letter, it's just going to make such a huge difference.
Yep. And it's one of also, I mean, pledge cards are like the last frontier for optimization. So we talked through all the nerdy stuff we've done with everything else. When it comes down to it, at most nonprofits, the number one thing you can do to raise more money, it's going to be to fix your letters. And the number two thing is going to be to fix your ask amounts specifically and your pledge cards. So the number one deciding factor on why your pledge card looks the way it is because it looked that way last year, right? And then it looked like that way the year before. That's how we all operate. So now take this advice, take this webinar, share with other people on your team, show them the different areas that we talked about. I'm going to share a couple more lessons and we're going to get to all the questions that I saw pop up there. Some lessons that we've learned. Another way to put this would be, learn from some of our mistakes. Just amplifying what Andrew said. We do, our clients have a lot of in-pew events. So for Catholic diocese, you're going to send out 20, 30, 100,000 direct mail pieces, and you're going to get a lot of recurring gifts, or excuse me, you're going to get a lot of gift renewals and recaptures that way. But then you also have an ask when people are actually at mass or in church and you give them a pledge card and they fill it out in the pews. Many of our clients, we were so excited by the pledge card we designed and it worked so well to get recurring donors. It did not work well for those in-person asks. So we actually went from a pledge card, this is the Diocese of Phoenix I see, that looks like this, with all of the things that we said you should have on there. And this year we've moved to a pledge card that looks like this. It is the simplest pledge card. It's not the greatest pledge card in the world. It is the simplest pledge card because we are betting that we can increase participation. We'll worry about getting them over to recurring giving at a later time, right? We just want to get them in the door because 80% of donors to diocesan appeals, 80% of the first-time donors to diocesan appeals come through the in-pew. So we just want to get them in the door. So we learned that you've got to be simple. Take the lessons that we learned for your direct mail and apply them. But if you're having in-pew appeals or in-person events, golf outings, simplify it down. Second lesson we learned, even small changes will result in phone calls from longtime donors. So just prepare yourself. You're going to get calls. If you take our advice and you change some things around, even just moving from a normal pledge card to a full-size pledge card, or switching around whether you ask for pledges or you take our advice and don't ask for pledges, but ask if you're a monthly or a one-time donor. This example is from Kansas City, and I just love it. We had a client in Kansas City, and they had, stop me if you've ever heard something like this, half of their database had like 9-digit constituent IDs, and the other half had like 3-digit or 4-digit, constituent IDs. It was just, and they started with zeros, and the other ones didn't. And it was a mess for a bunch of different reasons. We thought, okay, we'll go in and we'll clean it up. And we did, and we made them consistent across the board. So candidly, so that we could put on scan lines and make things a little bit easier on gift processing. And what we found was that a number of longtime donors called and were worried that something had broken, or they're worried that it wasn't going to credit the right account because they knew their 9-digit number, and they saw that it changed. We were not prepared for that. We are now. No matter what you do, you're going to get some phone calls. That's okay. Don't let that stop you from making the changes that are going to raise you a lot more money. Okay, some strategic advice, and then we're going to get to the Q&A. Strategic advice. So this doesn't really fit into pledge card design, but there are things that we think it's important that you know based on what we've learned. So the first one, Andrew and I get asked this all the time. Should we list the donor's previous gift amount on the letter or the pledge card, or neither? So donor made a gift of $200. Should we put that amount somewhere on that ask letter or on that pledge card? The answer is a very unsatisfying, it depends. It depends. Here's what we know. It's helpful if you want to anchor them to that gift. So if it's a major donor, I say yes, put it in the letter. Don't put it on the pledge card, put it in the letter. Thank you for your gift of $20,000. You're confident that that's what they gave. You want to show appreciation. You're not really worried about increasing the ask for them. But it's dangerous, right, if your data isn't accurate. And here I'm talking about if you're running an appeal and 1 year Nick gives the gift and the next year his wife Holly gives the gift, and maybe they got recorded as two different people, you're gonna screw up, right? And if you're not really on top of households and parent trees and all that stuff that you have to do inside your system, you could get in trouble. Soft credits, people that donate through a business and have a soft credit, if they have a pledge that they made and they maybe haven't paid it all off by the time you're sending your letter, all that stuff can throw off your number, and it can be risky to include that gift amount on the letter because the donor is going to say, wait a minute, it says I gave $800. I know that I pledged $1,000. What the heck's going on? It also makes asking for an increased amount very conspicuous. Andrew, do you want to talk to that at all?
Yeah, so again, to that first point, helpful if you want to anchor them to the same gift. Okay, that's true. So if you want them to give at the same level, you might want to consider putting their previous gift on there. But if you are inviting them to increase their gift, it's very tricky because you think of donor behavior or human behavior where they see the lowest amount and they're going to subconsciously or automatically go to that lowest amount that's available and check that box. So if you want them to increase their gift, I would say stay away from mentioning what they gave last time. You can mention the years that they've given, thank them for giving the last 3 years, specifically showing the different years that they gave. That's great. But if you want to increase giving, if you want to invite people to give more, I would keep that off of it. Then also it makes it very conspicuous when a person's writing a letter and they're talking about how great you are, and then all of a sudden there's this amount that looks like it came out of your analytics team or something. It's a specific ask amount that's in the letter. It's really going to take them away from the spirit of the letter when you're asking them for a specific amount. And I guess you're gonna go into that, Nick.
Yeah, no, you're dead on. So that, and we talk about it all the time, like the letter should be heartfelt. With our clients, they're usually coming from a bishop. With a lot of nonprofits, it might be coming from a CEO or a board member. If you do your job, you're writing a letter that makes people nod their heads and they say, yes, this is great. It gets weird when then suddenly there's and thank you for your gift last year of 87, 45. Clearly that CEO did not know that off the top of his head. And that's kind of the illusion you want, is that he's sitting down and writing that letter just for them. So what Andrew is getting at, should we include the specific amount in the letter? Our answer is no. You should not include that specific amount in the letter. Don't break that spell of the heartfelt long letter that you've sent. Let the ask strings do that for you. That's how it's the most beautiful system in the world, that subconsciously they like the letter, they feel they support your organization, they get down there. If you've done your job and set really good ask strings that include a little bit of a lift, they're going to check that box all day long, right? So let the ask strings do it for you. The exceptions, okay? So here's the exceptions. Don't include an ask amount in the letter or the pledge card, in the letter, unless your ask is meaningful instead of algorithmic. And here's what we mean. A meaningful and not algorithmic approach is, please, help feed this hungry child for $20 a week, or please join this giving society. Please join the 1,000 families who've given, joined our president's circle, something like that is okay. You can include an ask if it's tied to something meaningful, because that doesn't break the spell. That's realistic. Don't write a great letter and then ask a donor, would you give $212.75 because that's 10% more than they gave last year? Don't do it, okay? Let the ask strings do it for you. Okay, final slide, and then we'll take all the Q&A. Where you can go from here, a couple of places. I shared earlier, if you want to learn more about AskGenius, you can schedule a private demo. We are not a big company, right? So we're small and mighty. We're about 15 people. We run appeals all day long, and then we kind of built this little tool on the side to help ourselves, but we've now kind of opened it up. We have 20 spots where we can do demos and meet one-on-one with you. You can tell us about your pledge card. We can talk about how AskGenius works and how much more money it might be able to raise you. You can grab one of those spots. There may not be any left in the next couple seconds, as I'm seeing my icon here ding a lot. So you can grab one of those 20 spots, or we're going to do a live webinar that you can just open to anyone. So on March 10th, we'll walk through AskGenius. We'll talk about the different strategies that you can apply, how it works, how much more you can expect to raise, all that good stuff. So go ahead, you can schedule a private demo. Once spots are filled, when you don't get in, go on March 10th, and we'll have a big public demo there that you can still be interactive and ask questions. It just won't be quite as good as a private one because we can't do that one-on-one conversation. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over. I don't know, Andrew, if you've had a chance to look at the Q&A as I stop sharing my screen here.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to jump in on right away?
One I saw that's kind of jumping out to me right now. Have we tested perforated tear-off pledge cards versus the standalone pledge card that you provide with an envelope?
Yeah.
We haven't tested it, but we've heard about it. We've heard others expertise in their studies. We've heard it is better. So a standalone card, yes, we've heard it. That's much better. It calls out the pledge card, makes it more obvious that it's there for them to fill out. Very true. I don't think it's by that much from what I recalled. If you do the standalone, it is more costly. It's going to cost you more money to print. And then also it's going to be very limiting. It's going to limit your ability to insert variable data. So if you're going to personalize your pledge forms, it's going to be much harder to do it on a standalone than if it's just a tear off on your letter.
Yep. So short version of that is we haven't tested ourselves. We've heard that it's better to have the card as free floating in there. But for us, for almost all of our clients, it's not worth the extra expense, right? And candidly, depending on your printer, you may not trust them to match those two things together. So it's easier to know that the printer runs that letter through and the pledge card is printed on the same sheet, so they're not going to screw it up and mismatch it. So we're okay with that, but that's a great question. A question I just saw. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah. Also, another one that I'm really passionate about is QR codes.
Oh,
I think this is coming from my brother, actually. I don't know if I didn't tip him off. I didn't tell him to ask this question, but so do QR codes, are they helpful on pledge forms? Is it better than giving them the URL to your giving page? There's not a lot of data out there right now because this is kind of a new phenomenon that's happened since COVID started, where there's this resurge of using QR codes. We know that people are using them just based off of companies are still showing them on commercials, billboards, all sorts of printing. So we know people are conditioned to use them and they're using them more. Definitely worthwhile to test it yourself to see, because again, this is kind of a new phenomenon. There's not a lot of studies out there. Could you put both on the pledge form and then maybe on the letter? I say absolutely. Go ahead and do that. You don't know who's going to use the QR code. You don't know who's going to type in the URL. So go for it. Definitely worth testing out, trying out. If you're running out of space in your pledge form, so if you have the URL, you don't have anywhere to put the QR code. You could actually, we've done this before with some of our clients too. We put it next to the PS at the bottom of the letter. So you'll have that QR code there that says to give online, scan this QR code. So definitely worth testing. People are using QR codes, utilize it, see how it goes for you.
Yep. QR codes had the best year ever in 2020. They're around. We embrace them now. And Mankey was ahead of the curve on that too. He got us into it, and it's been working like a charm. Well, let's do some rapid fire ones here. Question from Lauren. What is campaign but not appeal? So this goes back to when I talked about donor segments. We had like campaign but not appeal donors. I'm talking about with our clients. Everybody runs an annual appeal, and then every 10 years they run a capital campaign. So I was just using that as an example to highlight somebody who gave to a capital campaign, but they're not giving to the annual appeal. That's a really fruitful segment, right? You can write a letter that says, hey, I know you gave, $5,000 towards our capital campaign. Now I'd like to, can I have you join the 30,000 families that give annually, to help XYZ? Just as easily could be, golf outing donors, but not annual appeal donors, or gala donors, but not annual appeal donors. Mm-hmm. So it's a good question from Lauren. Let's see here. Question from Kelly. For the check marks for recent appeals, do you leave a blank one for missed years or only list the years I gave to? Fantastic question, Kelly. Do not shame donors. It will never work. And again, we learn lessons the hard way, and then we feel strongly about them. I would only put those donor badges on there. The check box that say the last 4 years or last 3 years. Only do that if they have given the last 3 years or 4 years or whatever it is. Do not put a blank one on there. That's gonna have the unintended consequence of having a donor feel bad, which is not what you want them in the mindset when they're giving. So it's all or nothing. Okay. Now the donor doesn't know that. The donor assumes that other people maybe got that pledge card and it had blanks, but they feel really proud of being a good, consistent donor. Question from Jenny. What if you have a largely older population as donors who are used to sending in checks? That's great. Checks are always good. We'll still send checks. You'll notice on the pledge card that we had there, we really prioritize, online giving, but there's a spot for everybody that's used to sending checks that says, yes, my check is enclosed. So the whole goal of a pledge card is not to force people into a specific action. You want to invite them into actions that you want to take, right? But you're not going to force them. So that's fine. Checks are great. This isn't a question. I'm going to share an example. We had a client, a giant client, raising $14-15 million a year on their annual appeal. Their donation page required the donor to enter in their 9-digit constituent ID code before they could make a gift, right? So this is an example of something that was designed, and not with the donor in mind, but with the data processing team in mind. Don't do those things. Don't force people that want to write a check to give online. Don't force people that are online to know their constituent ID code. Just set it up to be as donor friendly as possible, but flexible. Okay, Andrew, any that you see here as I continue to scroll through?
I see one from Heather. This is a good one for you. Do you ask people who are already recurring donors to give a special gift or increase their monthly gift?
Yes. So a great question. As the world moves to recurring giving, we have this wonderful problem of how do we treat them, next year during the appeal. We write them a special letter. Number one, they have to get a special letter that says, thank you, Andrew and Teresa, you're among our most consistent donors. Your recurring gift, we're using it every month to do XYZ. I usually then use language like, we're in the church space, right? So if you've been especially blessed this year, please consider increasing your gift, and you'd like to increase your gift, you can go here. Some of the clever technical ways you can do that is you can actually send that letter, of course, but you can send an email as well that says, hey, if you'd like to increase your recurring gift, by $5 or $10, they can click a link that fills out a form. It's not even a donation page. They click a link that says, yeah, I'd like to increase my gift by $5. And then it goes and it fills out a form and it submits it to your data processing office. And then you can change the gift on your end to make it even that much simpler. And you avoid that risk of telling them what their amount is. And maybe it's not, if you're nervous about your data health or data cleanliness, you can just say, increase by $5, and then you can do it on the back end. It's a good question, Heather. Let's see here.
What about, we've actually talked about this today. So sad versus happy pictures on donation pages. That's from Lauren.
Yeah, so we're stepping into a new political hot button issue here. For years and years, sad photos will work better. If you're a famine relief agency or a world hunger agency, you're going to show photos that really tell that story, that break your heart. The idea of kids, that don't have enough to eat. We haven't done testing on that. There is a concern out there lately. So I've seen it on social media and some friends that work in that sector of concern about what that's doing. Is that exploitative? Is that the word? Is it exploitation? Yeah. It can really kind of take on a whole art form of like how depressing and sad the photo can be. We haven't done testing on it. I would just say be aware that some people now are asking whether that's most appropriate. For me, this might get me into trouble. I'm a practical guy. If a photo is real and accurate and it raises more money that allows me, to feed those children, I would rather use the photo that works better, than a smiling photo if the smiling photo doesn't work as well. But I am just be aware of the mood of the, at least on social media, about some of the trends that are happening. Question from Steve: is it better to have your URL go directly to a standalone donation page, or is it better to have it go to a landing page where it can be embedded on that page next to a message or something like that? Okay, great question. So this is sort of, where should that donation page go? It should go to a donation page. Yes, you need a anchor hero image, right? We generally default to smiling positive messages. You need a couple bullet points about, here's how we're going to use your gift, here's why it's important, here's why everybody's doing this, and then get right to the donation. Do not take them to a page that's not mobile friendly. Do not take them to a page that has a video. They will not watch it. Do not take them to a page that has navigation to go to other areas of your website. You want a dedicated donation page where the only funnel leads in one direction, right? To make that gift, ideally to make a recurring gift or to make a one-time gift. That's the best way to handle that. Go ahead.
I've got a question here from Francesca. So a lot of your donor cards, letters, and ideas are based on religious organizations. What if you aren't that and you fundraise for a museum who can't employ the heartstring tugging story?
Right.
I'm going to jump in really quick, and then Nick, you can give your thoughts on this. So if you don't have the heartstring tugging story, maybe you have a compelling story, but at least tell a story about your organization, about your mission, what you do, the importance of it. Make sure it's in story form. Make sure there's that personalization aspect to it, that it's coming from a person. That I think is the most important part.
Yep, 100%. The quality of your letter, no matter what you are, I mean, humane society, museum, you have stories that you can tell. Write in the first person. Write an amazing story of, a kid that came to the museum and was blown away when he saw the exhibit, and then he talked to his parents and wanted to become a zoologist. I mean, write that story, short, punchy sentences. Don't make it overly formal. Don't drown people with stats. Nobody cares about stats. That's been proven forever and ever and ever. Heartfelt letter. And this goes, I don't remember who asked the question, but somebody asked a question about images and letters. What we found is, let your letter be your letter, and then use collateral materials and don't try to mix the two. It underperforms. So write a letter on your letterhead, your zoo, your museum, your high school letterhead, from a real person, heartfelt, approachable, makes the donor nod his head, makes him the hero, makes him feel good. And then let your brochure have all the smiling photos, right? It's not real, because you want that illusion of the person sitting down and writing a letter just to you. And keep in mind, most donors on average are 68 years old. They'll always be 68 years old. 68-year-olds love to read letters. They care about your organization, or else they're going to recycle it, and it doesn't matter. Let the letter be the letter. Use collateral materials for all of the graphics. Let's tackle a couple more here, and then I know we're going on time, but so many people are still asking questions. I feel guilty wrapping this up. Other ones you saw, Menke, that we should jump to here?
Do you have, or let's see, from Catherine, do your letter recommendations apply to gift acknowledgement letters?
So my thoughts on gift acknowledgement, we could probably do a whole webinar just on gift acknowledgement letters. We build in some automations that tackle gift acknowledgement from a process standpoint. From the content standpoint, the best advice we can give you is, yes, you should still make it like a real person. Do not send a letter that looks like a bank form or an invoice. It's like, we have received your deposit of $200, right? Save this for your tax purposes. That's crazy. It's a giant wasted opportunity, a waste of postage. Make it heartfelt, make it real. Be like, Andrew, you're amazing. Like, thank you so much for your gift of $200. My job is to make sure we use it wisely. If you have any questions, call me. But what we're planning to do is we're going to use your gift to open a new exhibit at the zoo or whatever it might be. That's how you should approach everything. Like, take a look at all those robot forms you have. Year-end tax statements are the same way. A great opportunity to engage people, make them feel good about their giving, instead of sending out those robot letters. That's what we've seen for our clients.
Yeah, and acknowledgement letters, that's to our advice, and as far as including gift amounts, their previous gift amounts in your appeal letters, acknowledgement letters is where you want to tackle that. That's where you're thanking them for their commitment, their pledge, their gift. It's not the appeal letters that you're doing that. You're thanking them for their support, but not specifically the amount that they gave. So that's the perfect place to thank them for that specific gift.
Yeah, I'll take one last question here, and I think Jim has a good one here.
Yeah.
So we talked about ask strings. How is this different from the Blackbaud generated, minimum and maximum ask amounts? Great question. That is one data point that's really important that we use when we set ask amounts. But candidly, you can never just go by that because you're going to alienate a lot of donors. They might have on the high end, right? So without getting too much into how target analytics and everything works, it's a data point that's driven by household wealth, right? Do they have, how much is their property worth? That's publicly available information. Maybe in some cases, how much are they giving to other organizations and political parties? But I would never trust just that minimum maximum and then set an ask amount on it. It's a data point that's used as a guide, but it's just one, right? So I want to know what Blackbaud says we should ask, but I also want to know how much have they been giving, because they may have been giving us more than what Blackbaud is saying. Or if they haven't been giving to us and Blackbaud says we should ask them for high amount, I also want to see some things like, what zip code are they in? What's the average gift for people in their zip code? So we use that as one of about 10 data points, but we do not trust it. I don't know any nonprofits that just use those, whether it's target analytics or iWave or donor search. All of that is based on household wealth. It's just one factor. So it's a great question. We use it in all that we do. I will, again, somebody just asked if we could share that QR code again, so I'll put it back up on the screen here. Okay, so private demo, my guess is they're probably gone right now. There might be one or two left. So you schedule those where we've blocked out the time. We're happy to walk through the product with you. Otherwise, we'd love to see you on March 10th, and we'll explain how AskGenius works. And when you get the email from us from this webinar with all the resources, feel free to reply and let me know. If you want another webinar on just how to write good letters, if you want a webinar on donation funnels, let us know. We're here, we build in public. Our day jobs are fundraising consultants, but we love to share all the nerdy stuff that we've learned. So please feel free to holler at us and let us know what would be helpful. Yeah, Andrew, anything we missed today?
I don't think so. There's still a lot of good questions, and we'll be sure to follow up with you if we didn't answer it today.
Great. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll run through. I just want to be aware. I know folks generally schedule on the hour here, so we'll follow up with people that had questions. Otherwise, you've got my email. That's how you ended up here. You can go to askgenius.com and check us out there as well. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.